And we're back. You're listening or watching the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C show. Glad you could join us. Don't forget about getting a copy of my book. What, you don't have one? Don't worry about it. You can get one. That's right. You can get one right now. Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Kindle. You can also get it from our website, www.billycboxing.com, and click the book club section and get yourself a signed copy. The holidays they're here, man. And you should get everyone on your holiday gift list a copy of Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet. It's more than just for boxing fans. Trust me. The book's a good read. It's a quick read. And the best part is she fits right into the stockings, right by the chimney that you hang with care in hopes that fat guy with the red suit, well, you know the whole deal. Anyway, joining us right now with his thoughts on the heavyweight fights scheduled for this weekend, my man Daxx Khan. What's up, Dax?
What's going on, other than it's getting colder and colder by the day, so whatever the fat man by the chimney's wearing to keep warm, I got to get me one of those suits.
You know, I heard that it's going to be almost near 60 down by you by Saturday, I heard. I was talking to a buddy of mine down there, so who knows? It's the pneumonia weather. You know?
Oh, Bill, you kill me every time you say you have a friend.
Yeah, anyway. I do. I got lots, believe it or not. But anyway, I'll get your thoughts on the fights from this past weekend. But first, we got some interesting heavyweight fights scheduled for this weekend that you wanted to talk about. Which one you want to talk about first?
Oh, yeah, you know, the heavyweights, the division's exciting now, you know. We have a new man in charge, so it opens a lot of things up. And we got some young upcoming guys. Of course, we're going to speak about, you know, the two hottest guys in the division right now. Well, two of the three hottest guys in the division. That would be Anthony Joshua and Dillian White. You know, then we're going to go against, with a couple of veterans, but, you know, still somewhat relevant. Never know what they got left. Chris Arreola and Travis Kaufman. And then, again, another two young guys who, you know, are just may be heir apparent to the throne, and that's Dominic Breazeale and Charles Martin.
Good choices. Which one you want to start with first, brother?
All right, we'll start out with, you know, the British rivalry this weekend. You know, Anthony Joshua and Dillian White. You know, Anthony Joshua, everybody knows the background on him. You know, he's a big kid, 26 years old, 6'6", got a long 82-inch reach, and, you know, of course, he's a 2012 super heavyweight gold medalist. The pros on Joshua, he's big, obviously, not to sound repetitive. He's strong. He has that great amateur background, a solid jab. He's fairly fast, and, you know, he's starting to show a new dimension to his game every time he's out there, and little by little, they're starting to, mix up his opponents. You know, for example, they added a guy in there not too long ago, Kevin Kingpin Johnson, who's no puncher, but, you know, Kevin has always been able to go the distance with, you know, the very best in the sport, and Joshua was able to stop him. You know, the cons on him is we're not sure about his chin. He's yet to be tested, and, you know, he's really been yet to be in there with an opponent who's going to pursue him or go after him. So we don't know how his defense is if, you know, somebody, you know, does pursue him. So far, he's been the man to go in there and be the boss. The guy standing in front of him, a big rival, Dillian White. You know, this is somebody who's defeated Joshua in the amateurs. You know, Dillian doesn't have the pedigree that Joshua does, but, you know, what a lot of people don't know about Dillian White is he had a career as a professional kickboxer before going into boxing. So this is why Dillian White is very confident in the things he does, because of the fact he has been to the pro scene and he's been in front of the crowds. So this isn't anything new, despite the fact he only has 16 fights. The pros on him is he's a pressure fighter, underrated boxing ability, and he's confident. Despite that lack of pro experience, we've seen in many fighters what confidence can do. Just last week, we've seen it happen in the Amir Imam fight. You know, the cons on him is he's a bit wide with his shots. Sometimes he gets over-anxious, and he neglects his defense. Just like Joshua, we're not really sure what happens if he gets hit with a big punch. I have to favor Anthony Joshua here, Bill, because of, you know, the amateur background and because we've seen such improvement. You know, this is going to be his first real test as a professional, but I'm not going to be surprised if Dillian White does not come out the winner in this. I'm up on the fence with it. But, you know, Anthony Joshua is going to be my final pick, but, you know, an upset here is not out of the question.
You know that I'm a huge fan of Anthony Joshua. As a matter of fact, I think that Anthony Joshua is the future of the heavyweight division, no question about it. And one of the reasons I do believe that is because he's open to learn new things, like you pointed out earlier. You know, he's always introducing a new wrinkle in his game. And I think that that's a huge attribute for him, that he's not thinking that he knows it all, despite his accomplishments as an amateur and so far as a pro. So I think that the fact that he is open to learn new things is very important. I also feel that he's been moved along perfectly. He's been given a better opponent each time. His level of opposition has been increased, and I do feel that he's fought the tougher opposition of a lot of his counterparts in the way they're moved. So I think he's getting better and better each fight. As far as Dillian Whyte, he's a question mark to me. You know a lot more about him and his kickboxing background than I. I just know what I've seen in the boxing ring, plus his problem with the steroids. As far as this fight goes, I just think the height and reach advantage for Anthony Joshua is going to be too much. And despite losing to Dillian Whyte in the amateurs, we're in the pros now. And I think that Anthony Joshua will prove to be a much better pro than he was an amateur, which is saying a lot. I'm picking Anthony Joshua in this one. What's the next one?
Joshua as well, but anything can happen, and Dillian Whyte is a guy with genuine one-punch power, and yes, you're absolutely 100% correct. The pros and the amateurs are a big different story. Another thing on Dillian Whyte, what a lot of people don't know is that as an amateur, he actually put a guy into a coma. That tells you how hard he hits.
No, hey, listen. I give both of these guys a lot of credit, Dax, for fighting each other. We long for fighters here in the U.S. to fight each other, and they never do. We beg them. When we saw the big fight between Pacquiao and Mayweather, everybody was all jumping for joy, but that was a fight that should have taken place 4 years ago. I'm just glad that these guys are fighting each other, and I think the loser won't lose anything. He'll move on and continue with his career. So I applaud both of these young guys for having the willingness to step in with each other, and you got to applaud their teams for making it happen. But what's the next fight you're going to look at?
And next, we're going to go with the veterans. A couple guys who, at one point in time, we all had high hopes on, especially me. And they had some stumbling blocks, but let's see what they can pull out. We're going to go with Chris Arreola and Travis Kaufman. Arreola, everybody knows the backstory on him. He's a former two-time world title challenger, one of the sport's hottest prospects for a while. Matter of fact, Chris Arreola, for all the issues he has with his weight, back in 2001, he was a Golden Glove champion at light heavyweight. Kaufman also was, a decent amateur who won some national titles, no national titles, but regional, and he's another guy kind of set his career back, in 2009 when he was arrested for selling some marijuana. Chris Arreola, the pros on him, he has a big heart, in-your-face style, and he's more than just a brawler. He can box well when he so applies himself to. It's just at times we really don't see Arreola do that. He's a guy I had high hopes for, like I said. Early on, he's dangerous for a fighter with his loose physique. He has impressive stamina. In shape, Arreola can keep a fast pace, especially, for heavyweights, I should say, for 12 rounds. His chin is better than average. At one time, I personally thought the only fighter in the division with a better chin than Chris Arreola was Vitaly Klitschko. The cons on Chris Arreola is he lacks dedication. While in shape, he can be a force who has the steaming stamina. But, it's been a very long time then Chris Arreola has been in shape. And, Arreola, he's never had that fighter's physique, but, his stamina has always been there, and he's never been able to do that. After he challenged Vitaly Klitschko for the WBC title in 2009, Bill, and he was beaten without prejudice, he seems he lost a lot of desire. I actually think Vitaly Klitschko, took more out of him mentally than anything that was taken out of him physically. We've seen some shades of him, wanting to once again be a top heavyweight, but that's only been against that third-tier competition. His best performance since that loss was to Seth Mitchell, and that's not saying much. Travis Kaufman, the guy across from him, the pros on him, he has desire. He wants to be a top name in the sport. He trains hard. He puts the work in. His father, Marshall Kaufman, is a promoter, and that's allowed Travis to be around the sport most of his life. He's learned a lot from being around those fighters at a young age. He has a solid jab. His power is not the best, but it's good enough to make opponents respect him, and he's fairly agile for a heavyweight. The cons on him: soft competition and a soft chin. His lone loss is Tony Grano back in 2009. That was supposed to be a step-up fight for him. Grano himself at the time was a decent prospect, but since then, Tony Grano has done what. And ever since that loss, they failed to put Travis in with a top-tier fighter, even when ranked in the top 20. Reasons kind of being obvious. 2013 was his banner year, fighting 4 times, but he's only fought 3 times since. He's had injuries, and he's had periods of inactivity throughout his whole career, especially the last 2. This is a tough call. 3 years ago, I would have picked Chris Arreola without hesitation. Right now, especially after the Cassie fight, I don't know. But Cassie's still better, in my opinion, than any fighter Travis Kaufman's ever been with. I think he might even be better than Travis Kaufman. I have to go with Arreola, just based on the fact if he comes out, gives his all for the first 4 rounds before he fades, that's enough for him to get the win here.
You know what? I don't know what to say about Travis Kaufman other than, totally built-up fighter. And I agree with everything you said. And I don't know, except for one. I think it's a 50-50 split of what Klitschko took out of Chris Arreola. I think not only, and you make a fantastic point, not only is he a different fighter mentally, but I do believe it took a lot out of him physically, Dax, because he's not the same guy. He's really not. I mean, he's even come in better shape. So you could say that, his dedication has, it's definitely been peaks and valleys, but it seems like he did have a more serious camp every now and then. I just don't know if he's the same fighter. He seems to get hit a lot more. Not that he was an elusive fighter, but even with all of that, I think that this is Chris Arreola's another chance. I don't know how many chances he's gotten already, but I think that he gets by Travis Kaufman, which, like you, I think he will. I'm picking Chris Arreola with a big win. I think he's going to knock out Kaufman, but if he should lose here, Dax, I think the fat lady will start singing.
Yeah, as far as the Klitschko comment, I have to agree with you, but I think a lot. I think the mental part is what really hurt him. And after the Adamek fight, the way Thomas Adamek was able to bust him up like that, that's why I lean towards the mental aspect more, because when Thomas Adamek was hitting him, Chris Arreola was kind of freezing there. And, it's not like Thomas Adamek was really hurting him. But then again, losing to Vitaly Klitschko, we've seen what he's done to a lot of guys in their career at good points in time in their career. So, Vitaly is certainly a guy that would take a lot out of you. Now, our next fight we're going to do today is we're going to do, 1 second.
Dominic Breazeale.
We're going to do the heavyweights, Dominic Breazeale and Charles Martin.
Right. Interesting fight. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this one.
Breazeale, is a former 2012 Olympian. He lost in the first round to Magomed Umarov, who was a very good amateur. Martin is a former national Golden Glove champion. He's a PAL runner-up. Not quite the elite background that Breazeale had, but he was a good amateur. Dominic Breazeale, a big guy, 6'7". He's undefeated, 14 knockouts and 16 wins, 81.5-inch reach. The pros on him. He's got a solid jab. He's been fairly active, fighting 8 times in the last 2 years, and the level of competition is kind of picking up. His last 3 opponents, they were combined 56-5. One of those opponents was an undefeated Yasmine Kasugara. The other guy I spoke about with Arreola was Frank Cassie, and that was his last opponent. The cons on him is I don't see his overall skill set improving despite the level of competition. In the Cassie fight, I think the size advantage allowed him to do better than he would if he was smaller. If not for that 7.5-inch height and 56 pounds and 7-inch reach advantage, I think that would have been a different fight. I'm a bit suspect of his chin as well. He doesn't seem to like getting hit. Not that anyone does, let's be honest. But Breazeale, he gives that I'm not getting paid look in his eyes when he gets caught with a solid punch. He starts to back up instead of imposing himself like he should. A fighter that big, when he gets hit, if he imposes himself, more than likely he should be able to overcome those moments. That makes me suspicious. The guy across from him, Charles Martin, he too is a big guy. He's a big hitter, 22 fights, 1 draw, 20 knockouts, about the same age, 29 years old, and the reach on there is only an inch. Also, he's a southpaw. You would think that, this may be the deciding factor in this fight because I don't think Breazeale's ever dealt with a southpaw. Martin, being a big puncher, he's also fast, and he likes to work the body, and one thing I noticed in all his fights is he comes right to his opponents, never takes a step backwards. I think that if he sits there and he goes after Dominic Breazeale, we could see something similar like happened with Daniel Jacobs and Peter Quillen this week. And activity, he's fought in 2015 4 times. Last year, he fought 5 times, 11 times in 2013, so he's in shape. He's always ready to go. The cons on him, level of competition. While Brazil has not faced anyone elite, as stated, except for Fred Cassie, Fred is better than any two guys Martin has faced so far. I'm on the fence with this one here. I think Brazil should be able to outbox him, but if Martin comes in, he lands that big left hand. Looking at the way Dominic Brazil has reacted to big shots, I wouldn't be surprised if Martin knocks him out cold. What really makes me talk about this fight, Bill, is I'm baffled at the fact that the winner of this one is potentially going to face Tsar Glaskov for the vacant IBF title should Tyson Fury decide to vacate it, because it's rumored Kathy Duva has already, started to say if he vacates that Tsar Glaskov should be put in that position, because I believe he is the mandatory.
Who's your official pick before I comment on that?
My official pick here, is going to be Dominic Brazil. He should be able to outbox him, but if I think, Martin lands that big left hand, Dominic Brazil could go out. That's why these fights are so interesting this week, because they're all such big guys, Bill, and they all have big-time power. So in the heavyweight division, it's always one big punch away, and these are all young, hungry fighters. That's why this division is so exciting now, because it's been a long time since we've had young, hungry fighters looking to be the next king.
Yeah, unfortunately, they don't work their way up like they used to. Where the guy, you're beating the guy in front of you, then you're beating the next one up and next one up. They jump from a Brazil Charles Martin fight right to a title, which is ridiculous. But back to the fight, like you, I don't see an improvement in Dominic Brazil, and I've tried. I've tried to watch him. I've tried to think positively about this guy. I see a guy that doesn't look like he's in the best shape all the time, and you're right, and I know what you mean. Nobody likes to get hit, but he really doesn't like. I mean, it's sort of like Klitschko when Klitschko gets hit. Charles Martin, I think Charles Martin's going to win this fight. I'm picking Charles Martin in this fight to beat Brazil. I just don't think Brazil is as good as advertised. Now, your comment about Duva with the IBF and stuff, that's a sickening situation. And I think it's just a clear indication of how the sanctioning bodies love when a fighter that's got multiple titles loses, so that they can immediately put that title up so other fighters can fight for it, so they can collect sanctioning fees. I agree with you 100%. Neither one of these two fighters, Charles Martin or Dominic Brazil, deserve a chance at a world title at this stage. Maybe if these two winners of this fight fought the winner of the Areola Travis Kaufman fight, then that winner emerges to get a shot. I could accept that. But on the other side of the coin, I don't even think Glaskov should be getting a shot at the title. This is the problem with all these sanctioning bodies with their own rating system. I think it's terrible that they even do that and split the belts up the way they do, because you got all these different guys pounding on their chest saying they're the best, that they're the real champ. And realistically, you got 5 champions running around. So it's a joke. It's a joke. But
I wish I could disagree with you. Another two guys that really make me excited for this division is one, of course, the Canadian former Olympian, Simon Keane. He's only starting out with 2 fights. He's very raw, but again, he's a big 6'5". He's young. He's only 26 years old. He's strong. But a kid other than Anthony Joshua, the one that really makes me excited when I watch his fights and who I really think is going to be dangerous, is the kid from down in New Zealand. Joseph Parker. Now there's a kid right there, Bill, who I think him and the winner of Joshua and Dillian White, if they should face off, and the winner of that fight right there, I think they would be able to meet Tyson Fury. I think by that time they would have deserved their earned themselves a shot at least at one of those belts. And right there, I actually think either one of those guys would beat Tyson Fury. So there's a lot of exciting things in this division, and I can't since 2003, I haven't been excited about a heavyweight.
My point, though, is you got these guys, and they fight, awful opposition, and then all of a sudden they're in the line for a world title shot. That's my problem. I just wish that they would at least fight the other contenders. That's all, and work their way up the contender ladder. You know, you start off being a prospect, you become a top 20 contender, you start fighting other guys in front of you, and that's how you move up. That doesn't happen today. But anyway, we're running out of time. we're running out of time, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the Daniel Jacobs fight. I mean, Daniel Jacobs against Peter Quinlan. There's no question that all props have to be given and credit has to be given to Daniel Jacobs for winning that fight. But did it answer any questions?
I don't think it did. Yes, credit to Daniel Jacobs, absolutely. It was a sensational knockout. But, we spoke about this off the air, and I said this about several fights. I actually said this about the Triple G and the David Lemieux fight. What happens if somebody comes out and they just go right after them? Peter Quinlan has never had somebody come after him like Daniel Jacobs did, and this is where he didn't know what to do once he got stunned. We've seen this happen together with Jermaine Taylor when he lost to Carl Froch. He didn't know how to hold. These young guys don't know how to hold. If he might have held, there might have been a little bit of difference, and something might have, the outcome might have changed. But that's a could have, would have, and a maybe. But Daniel Jacobs right now, he really does have to prove a little bit more. Peter Quinlan, a good fighter, is strong. We got the pick wrong. When the guys, what really bothers me is that the first thing they do is they're going to bring up Triple G. And, this is when I hate when they put fighters on the spot. Well, do you want to fight him next? Of course he's going to give the answer on, well, that's up to my management team. And, what else is he going to say? He's going to say yes, and then, his management team is like, listen, this isn't going to happen. They know, the problems with the HBO. They know the problem with the Showtime. And, if he did sit out there and call out Triple G, what would have happened then? It would have created a whole lot more, a whole lot more chaos in this. These guys, even these champions, because there's so many champions, as you said, you know what? They got to fight more top guys before they can even consider themselves one of the champions. In my opinion, you have one champion. The rest are kind of belt holders. And how do I judge a champion? I judge a champion by the quality of his wins. The ignorance that bothers me, Bill, and I was talking to a couple other people in the sport, and maybe we'll talk tomorrow on this. It was amazing at how many people, the so-called armchair experts, the ones that criticize you, they criticize me, they criticize Dan Rayfield, everybody else who's involved in the sport, whether it be media or as a professional, all over social media, they're going, why didn't he get a standing 8 count? Harvey Daxx should have gave him a standing 8 count. He stopped it too soon. Guess what? There is no standing 8 count. But you know what? Except what happened here. It happened. It was a good win for Jacobs. It was a setback for Peter Quinlan. Maybe we've seen it coming a little bit with the Andy Lee fight when Peter Quinlan was dropped. Peter Quinlan was another guy who I used to compare to Jermaine Taylor, saying that, he was kind of fed guys a lot smaller than him, and he was kind of fed opponents that made him look a little bit more dominant than what he was. Peter Quinlan, really, what genuine, legitimate prime middleweight has he beaten? His best win prior, it is actually his best win to date, was probably over Endam, and that's only because he was so much bigger and he was able to knock Endam down more times than I can count.
Yeah, and I think listen, you can't compare Daniel Jacobs' resume to Peter Quinlan's. Quinlan definitely had tougher opposition on his resume from start to finish than Daniel Jacobs. I just think that I think Daniel Jacobs' hand speed and his punching power were the equalizer in this fight, and sprinkle in the fact, like you said earlier, that Peter Quinlan just didn't have an answer, didn't have the experience. His corner didn't have the experience. They didn't know what to do when he was in some serious trouble. As far as the stoppage goes, listen, it was up to Quinlan to take that knee. There is no standing 8 count, like you said. There's no more standing 8 count. That's one of, if they listen to the rules, if the fans listen to the rules, they say no standing 8 count. The bottom line is that, he's in trouble. When the fighter's in trouble, go down, get your wits together, and come back. You can't fault Harvey Daxx. The guy's eyes were rolling around his head. I saw it on TV. Imagine what it looked like right up close,
Yeah, I mean, his eyes were almost as bulgy as Harvey Daxx were.
I know. Well, almost as bulgy as Max Kellerman.
He was definitely stunned. on the other hand, being a guy who's been around the sport, since I was a kid, watching the sport, you want to say to yourself, in a way, and that's when you're kind of looking at it as a fan. You want to say to yourself, well, if every referee stopped the fight just like that, we'd have had no Castillo and Corrales. We wouldn't have had the Gatti Ward wars. We wouldn't have had the Rafael Marquez and the Vasquez wars and so on. But
yeah, but no, that's not true, Dax, because in those fights they were in the heat of battle. And they got back up. They hit the canvas. In this case, you can't really fault the referee. Sometimes you can fault the referee for coming out of nowhere and waving off a fight, even when the fighter's fighting back. But Quinn was clearly defenseless, and when he regained his footing and went forward, he wasn't ready to continue. Jacobs would have.
That's my point exactly.
Yeah, no, you're right.
You want to say, okay, it was an early stoppage, but if you've been around the sport and you think about it, okay, you know what, that was a good stoppage because the referee is right there. The referee can see what's going on. You don't get that that view from the television, even as a judge sitting on the three sides, or even when you're on the apron as a ringside photographer. You don't get to look right inside their eyes. Maybe later on you get that look when they're showing the replays in slow motion, and then you say to yourself, wow, that was a good stoppage. But as a fan, I'm saying, you want to say to yourself, it shouldn't have been stopped. But, you have to use logic and say, you know what, that was a good stoppage.
No, I agree. Dax, we got to take a break. We're scheduled to have a heavyweight spotlight on. Great job with the 3 heavyweight fights, and hopefully they'll live up to the expectations and keep this exciting division, which is maybe, like you're saying, maybe becoming exciting, moving in the right direction.
Hopefully, and Yumi, I don't know, Alice is in the chat room or not, but Yumi and Alice had a talk this week. I have, considering something like the standing A count where the people had no idea that it didn't even exist anymore, and, they're criticizing everybody else and the armchair experts. I have a really good idea for a round table for Yumi and Alice. It's been a long time since we've done one, and we could bring somebody else in there and just talk about the difference between what it was like becoming a fan as we grew up and how we learned about the sport, and what these fans are like nowadays, just totally clueless. They have no idea how the sport works. All they know is 2 guys go in there, punch each other, and get paid.
Yeah, and then they know all the politics, which is regressing the way people look at each other and respect each other these days. But great job, Dax, and I'll be looking forward to the next time, my man.
All right, I'm looking forward to this heavyweight spotlight. Have a good night, guys.
All right, that's Daxx Khan. You can check out his column up on BillyCBoxing.com. I got to take a break. When I come back, we're scheduled to have James Curl, and we'll be talking about our heavyweight spotlight, which is going to shine on Ron Lyle. I'll be back in 2.
Talkin'.